place during the early morning hours of September 30th, 2023, that left Brendon severely injured with possible permanent life-changing injuries that he suffered. Today I'm joined by Brendon's parents. This is the mother, Delisha Ware, Ms. Ware, and also the father, Donald Johnson. From the limited information that we have regarding this shooting, Brendon was in a pickup truck that belonged to his friend. Brendon was in the truck along with three other of his friends when several police officers came up on the scene, and some of the officers had their guns drawn. The driver and the backseat passenger were taken out of the vehicle. They were commanded by the police to get out, and the driver and the backseat passenger then got out. And by this time, Brendon had crawled into the front seat of the car and the truck. And at that time, as Brendon was trying to drive away, one of the officers fired about 5 shots at the truck as Brendon was attempting to get away. As we all know, Officer Giovanna McLinton fired approximately 5 rounds from his presumably .40 caliber Glock, with one of the rounds striking Brendon to the left side of the face and the bullet traversing across his eyes, causing severe damage. To put salt in the wound, the Little Rock Police Department would not even allow Brendon's parents to visit for a period of 2 days. Brendon was placed in a medically induced coma, and he was in the intensive care unit fighting for his life. I met with the parents of Brendon this past Sunday, and I spoke to them, and I went to the hospital Sunday afternoon to visit with Brendon. And when I got into the hospital room, he was in the ICU. Of course, he didn't know that I was there. There was a Little Rock police officer sitting in the room, and of course, when I went into the room, the officer was asked to leave. The shooting of Brendon has already been ruled to be an unjustified shooting by the Little Rock Police Department as well as prosecuting attorney for Pulaski County. It is my understanding that Mr. McLinton has been relieved of his duty, at least placed on administrative leave with pay. What this officer did was inexcusable. It was indefensible. Qualified immunity will not be available to this officer because he violated Mr. Johnson's constitutional rights. And as you know, the Fourth Amendment protects citizens from unreasonable searches and seizures by the government. And so the right was clearly established when the officer fired several rounds into this truck. Therefore, qualified immunity is not available. Police officers are not allowed to shoot someone just to prevent them from escaping. Justice White, in a 6-3 decision for the United States Supreme Court, stated as follows. He said, the use of deadly force to prevent the escape of felony suspect, whatever the circumstances, is constitutional unreasonable. It is not better that all felony suspects die than they escape. Where the suspect poses no immediate threat to the officer, no threat to others, the harm resulting from failing to apprehend them does not justify the use of deadly force to do so. It is no doubt unfortunate when a suspect who is in the sight escapes, but the fact the police arrive a little late or a little slower afoot does not always justify killing the suspect. A police officer may not seize an unarmed, non-dangerous suspect by shooting him dead. The Tennessee statute is unconstitutional insofar as it authorizes the use of deadly force against such fleeing suspect. And that case is called Tennessee versus Gardner. It was decided by the United States Supreme Court in 1985. So that has been on the books since 1985. What this shooting demonstrates is that we have a systemic problem with policing in America that places African Americans and other minorities in this country in danger. In the year of 2020, African Americans are still not safe, sleeping in their bed. Breonna Taylor, standing at their bedside window. Atiana Jefferson, sitting in their home eating ice cream. Botham John, or just watching birds in a park. Kristen Cooper. And I did not even mention George Floyd, who was accused of passing a $20 counterfeit bill. In 2020, African Americans are still viewed through a different lens by police and society in general. We are seen as threatening, especially if you're an African American male. which is why unarmed African Americans are killed at a disproportionate rate than whites. According to the analysis of data put out by the FBI in 2012, African Americans made up 13% of the overall population, but accounted for 31% of citizens killed by the police. Also in the study, The Guardian indicated that African Americans and other racial minorities made up 37.4% of the general population in 2015. That's African Americans along with Hispanics and other racial minorities made up 37.4% of the general population, but made up 62.7% of police killings of unarmed citizens. And we're talking unarmed citizens. Brendon, in this case, was unarmed. He did not have a weapon. A veteran police lieutenant in Georgia was overheard on his dash cam telling a frightened white woman during a traffic stop to calm down, and that there was no need for her to be frightened because we, the police, we only kill black people. This is what a lieutenant said in Georgia. And I have other statistics, and I'm not going to bore you with those. It is this racial bias, and that's even by some black officers, by the police, that explains why blacks are much more likely to be killed by the police than whites. However, the sad reality is that due to seeing blacks as threatening and not whites, is the reason why so many white officers are killed by white citizens. They don't see a white citizen as a threat to them. I visited with Brendon yesterday, and he was doing a little better, but is still struggling with what happened to him and why it happened. Brendon told me that he wanted the public to see what they did to his face. And I'm going to show you this photograph. This is a situation where a police officer has been poorly supervised, poorly trained, and this is what happens. When we have police officers, we put them on the police force and they are poorly trained, this is the outcome. This young man, 20 years old, whose life has been forever changed as a result of the action of this officer. African Americans make up approximately 40% of the population of the city of Little Rock, but when one thinks about the police shootings by Little Rock police officers just in the last 10 years, most, if not all, of the victims have been black. This is also a case involving a violation of the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause, because when it comes to the use of deadly force by members of the Little Rock Police Department, African Americans are much more likely to be shot and are killed as opposed to their white counterparts. You know, and it's just amazing. Just yesterday, there was a man who went to the Wisconsin State Capitol with a 9mm. He went there looking for the governor. They arrested him, let him go. Hours later, he came back with an AK-47, again, demanding to see the governor with an AK-47. And we all both know that had this been a black man, it would have been a different outcome. And I just read an article this morning where this white lady went into a Connecticut police department and shot up the place. I mean, she went into a police department, shot up the place in Connecticut, and she lived to have a photograph taken in a police lineup. Black people don't have that same type of luxury. So at this time, I'll open the floor for any questions in case anyone have any questions about what's going on. Again, I don't want to forget about this young man. This young man's life has been permanently changed for no reason whatsoever.
What do you believe should be the charge addressed in this situation?
Well, I'll leave that up to the prosecuting attorney. You know, the prosecuting attorney is filing charges. You know, it's kind of interesting to note that here you have a black officer who was charged immediately for shooting someone. In past history, we have seen where it's taken months for the prosecutor to come to some kind of conclusion, especially when that officer is white. And so we even see a difference of treatment as it relates to the black officer, but I'm not here on behalf of the black officer. I'm here on behalf of Brendon, trying to get justice for Brendon. Yes?
You haven't said, are you guys planning to file a lawsuit? And then my other question is, have y'all seen the body cam, dash cams video?
No, I haven't seen the video yet, although we're going to be getting that. And of course, I mean, if the city is not going to do the right thing, then the only thing that we can do is file a civil rights action. You know, and so yeah, I mean, that's something that we are going to do. Hopefully, the city would do the right thing, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. You know, it's interesting that and the city knows that once they terminate a police officer, that's sort of their protection or shield to get to the city. And so they sort of use that as a shield. Again, qualified immunity with the officer is not an issue. The officer we can get to him without any problem. And so the challenge is going to be getting to the city. But I think we won't have a problem getting to the city, because this is it's not only a Fourth Amendment violation, but it's an equal protection violation, because equal protection clause entitles citizens of this country to have equal application of the law. And when you look at the fact that there are so many African Americans who have been shot and killed by the police, especially even in this city, then we do not see an application of the equal protection.
Can you clarify what exactly the city could do that you're referring to taking action?
I'm sorry, you said what?
Can you clarify what exactly you're wanting the city to do?
Well, what I want the city to do is to get this man some type of justice, get this young man some kind of justice. And the only way that I know justice is monetary damages. I'm a lawyer. That's what I do. I'm a civil rights lawyer. And so the only way that I know to get justice is by having monetary damages being paid, as he is entitled to be paid.
You mind telling me who's sitting next to you today?
Oh, yes, ma'am. This is his mother, Brandon. I know she looks very young, but this is his mother, Miss Darlisha Johnson. Did I say Darlisha Johnson? And this is the father of Mr. Johnson. This is Donald Johnson, his father.
Is Mr. Johnson out of the hospital yet?
No, he's not. He has a long road recovery ahead of him.
Could either of y'all give reaction to this in response? Do y'all feel comfortable saying anything?
I'm not sure what reaction you're looking for.
Just response to what happened to your son.
I think it's unfortunate and very awful what happened to my son, and I feel like he was not deserving.
It was very, very traumatic. Still trying to figure out what all disabilities that he's going to have behind this is what's kind of troubling to me.
You know, as parents, you know, when we see these things happening around the nation, we never think it's going to stop at our front door, and that's what these parents are having to deal with right now. They have seen these things happen around the nation, but they never thought that it would stop at their front door, but it has. And you know, and me as a father, I have 5 African American sons, and it's frightening as a parent to see what they have to face.
Yes, my name is Barbara Lunnan with the Little Rock NAACP.
Yes, ma'am.
Branch 6019. I'm the first vice president. First, I want to give you my sincere sympathy of what's going on with your son, because I have 3 sons and I have grandsons. But my question is, were there any other officers there that fired their weapon at all?
We don't know that, ma'am. Again, I have not seen the official report. The only thing that we know, and I spoke to a witness who was there, and according to him, this one officer did do the shooting, and there were about 5 shots that were fired.
And he's been on the force for what, 3 years?
About 3 years. In my understanding, less than 3 years. I still consider him to be a rookie. And again, you know, that there was a settlement that came out of a case involving, I think, Blackshire. And one of the things, and of course that settlement was vehemently objected to by City Attorney Tom Carpenter. And one of the things that came out of the settlement, and the settlement indicated that there was supposed to be additional training. And one of the things that the police department need to have training on, especially dealing with issues of race and how police respond to individuals of different race. And we all have all seen on national TV how there is a difference in responding to black citizen versus white citizen. And we see it all the time. And there needs to be more training along those lines. And I don't know if the city implemented those trainings in response to the settlement involving Officer Starks and the killing of Blackshire, but that was something that they were supposed to implement. And we'll be looking into that, looking into their training records.
And my question is, the difference, was there a difference in the shooting with Blackshaw and this McClinton and Stark and Mr. Johnson?
Well, as far as the shooting of Starks, the officer, he was in front of the vehicle and he was constantly shooting. He shot about, it's my understanding, he fired about 15 rounds. Whereas the officer who fired the shot at Mr. Johnson at Brendon, he was on the side. So there was no danger to the officer. And the police department, they've acknowledged that. They've acknowledged that no officer's life was in danger. See, the only time that a police officer can use deadly force is to save their life or the life of someone else. And that did not exist when this shooting occurred.
From what I understand, the officer gave the expression that he was fearing for his life, which in the black community seems like the standard response that's often given. What's your understanding?
Well, I don't understand how he can be fearing for his life if he's on the side of the truck. And the truck was going away from him. And so, no, I just don't see that. And obviously, the Little Rock Police Department is in agreement with me. The prosecuting attorney is in agreement that this officer, what the courts look at is what was objectively reasonable. Would an objectively reasonable officer, would that officer have done the same thing? And so, no. And the answer is no, an objectively reasonable officer would not have done this. And so the officer's life was not in danger at the time he shot. There was no other police officer's life that was in danger at the time he shot. And so there was no reason for the shooting. The only reason that we can come up with is he just didn't want Brandon to get away. And so, but again, you can't use deadly force in that situation.
What do you use as reasoning for pulling him over in the first place?
I don't know. Well, like I said, I haven't seen the official report. I haven't seen the investigation. I don't know the answer to that question. We're still in the initial phase. But I just wanted to have this press conference just to give Brandon's side of the story, because we've seen a lot been covered by the media, only that's coming from the prosecuting attorney, only that's coming from the police department, and we wanted to have an opportunity to give Brandon's perspective. With that being all, thank you for attending this press conference, and we're looking forward to getting justice for this young man.
I have one other question.
Yes, ma'am.
I noticed earlier you said that it's when black males, they mostly get shot into black females. Do you think it could be that police are just programmed to shoot blacks?
Well, I mean, that's something that the statistics seem to bear out, because African Americans are shot and killed at a disproportionate number than their white counterparts. Those have been the facts for many years, and so that hasn't seemed to change. And so when you look at the fact that African Americans make up roughly 13% of the population in this country, but yet 24% of all those people who are killed by the police, who were shot by the police, that's a disproportionate number. Okay? Thank you. Thank you very much.